We got out. We are heavy.
Thank you so much. So this frame. This right here is the bigger problem. Yeah, I don't know. This is all trash though, so. Okay, so what did I find out? Not a lot of places wanted to do that project. That's, man, it's nice when things work out nice. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we're working through a renovation of this 1956 Calcraft. Previously, we had done a complete frame-off renovation of a 1968 Playmore Model 140, and if you're interested in that, you can go back to our channel's homepage and click on the Watch from Beginning and see all of our mistakes and successes. But today, we're going to continue taking some measurements off of this and taking it down to the bare frame so that we can really see what needs to be done to fix this up and get this rebuilt into a camper. Still have a little bit of the decking material on there that's in pretty bad shape, so I'm going to try to take as good a measurements as I can off of that so that I can put it back when it's ready to go. As I always say, it's very, very critical to take very precise measurements, and for me at least, it is so helpful to build a 3D model in SketchUp to refer back to and to understand better how everything was assembled. Anyway, I'm going to get started with those measurements and get this stripped down a little further.
I spend most of my time viewing what I want from the outside. I comb it over like it's the scene of a crime.
Okay, so I've made my drawing of where all the framing is on the metal frame, and I've also noted where there's things like carriage bolts and other things that would have tied everything together. I've also made a sort of profile drawing of both the front and the back, some of the details of how the wood goes together in ways that's maybe not just so straightforward. You know, when you're making notes on all this stuff, I think maybe one thing I haven't mentioned is that any tape measure has at least a 1/16 of an inch on it. I would measure to a 1/16 of an inch because you never know how much off things were. Like if it just, you know, it looks like 1.5 inches, but you look at everything and everything's actually 1 inch and 9/16, you probably ought to make things 1 inch and 9/16 because by the time you get rebuilt all the way to one side, you might end up, you know, 1/4 of an inch or more off, depending on how many of those 1/16 of an inch you cut off. And you know, it's not such a big deal if you're doing new skin and everything, but if you're trying to reuse your old skin, you really want those measurements to be very accurate. So with those measurements made, I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of this framing off of here. First thing, I think it's going to be to take these wheel wells off. They're in kind of bad shape, but anyway, that's the place to start. Those are going to come off, and then we're going to pull the rest of the frame off.
Someone else to say I can live my
life. Okay, so those were still holding on a little harder than I thought. Someone had welded this one partly onto the frame. The other one was partly screwed into the frame, so good job, guys.
Keep asking for permission. Why do I keep asking for permission? When I can't lie awake for someone else to say.
Of course, the question you might ask is, why didn't you just unbolt those? Well, because the bolts are rusted and they just spin, so you can't. Now, of course, I will need to go back and cut the bolts off, but it's easier to do with the board out of the way.
Go sweet, go. He's in the tree. Have him. Bam. Have him.
So it's tomorrow, and I got everything kind of cleaned up over here last night. I wanted to show you what was going on with our frame here. And there's a few things that have me a little bit concerned. So I'm not really sure how well you can tell on the camera, but right here, and it does it the same on both sides, you can see how this C channel, as it comes up this way, it starts to fold out a little bit. Not that extreme, but just, you know, I mean, it's not awful, but it's not really what you want. But this right here is the bigger problem. The frame itself is actually cracked. This sheet of metal on the inside of this, and the crack actually goes down almost halfway through it. And I think part of the reason why it cracked there is because this is such a bad weld they've got up here. I mean, it looks like they either didn't get it cut to where this met up with this piece, and they just kind of welded around it, leaving a little hole right there, or possibly, I don't know enough about welding, but I suppose it's possible they burned through that, but that'd have to be really hot to burn through this metal. So this was just sloppy. This was, I assume, original to the camper back in 1956, but this is not good, and it caused this to split when this thing got in an accident of some sort. This front piece of angle iron, I knew I was going to have to replace it. You can see how this part is torqued all the way under, but it's actually split right here. Yeah, I don't know. This is all trash though. So, and this section of C channel, it also does the same thing as the other side, and then it comes up this way and it starts to fold out like that. So this axle's definitely toast. This little dog leg, whatever you want to call it, has been pushed down on or pushed up on something, but caused some additional damage that further deformed these joints here. So that's not that big a deal. I was planning on that. The frame damage, I wasn't quite planning on. So this frame, I think I knew from the beginning that the frame was in bad shape and had taken some damage. I sort of wanted to just believe it was the body collapsing around it, because the body's just woodworking, and I knew I was tearing that apart, and I know I can fix it. I don't really do metalworking. You know, since I don't have any experience doing it, I don't know if this is the kind of project I want to tackle at the start. So I'm going to do some calling around, and I'm going to see if I can find out approximately what kind of cost I would be looking at having someone fabricate this for me. And, you know, if they come back and it's like, oh, it'll be $7,000, that's not going to happen. I'll just be figuring out how to do it myself. So what did I find out? Not a lot of places want to do that project. The places that do wouldn't be able to get to it for several months. So I did get the number of a guy that does some welding, and I called him and left a message. So we'll see if he calls me back. I think I probably need to make a pretty detailed model of this frame. Assuming he does call me back, I'll probably need to send that to him so I can knock that out pretty quick. It's really not that fancy, so starting to look more and more likely that I'm going to be doing this project myself. All right. Oh, going to be doing this way. Yep, keep pushing.
Oh no!
Oh, big push. Oh, there we go. Good job.
Like we got out. We are heavy.
Okay. Okay, we've got the trailer hitched up, and we're going to take it over to the guy that called me back about taking a look at it and see if we can drop it off today. Hopefully our tires hold air and we get there and everything's cool. Fingers crossed. All right, so yeah, he thinks he can straighten it, and you know, a couple $100 plus redoing the springs on the axle. He said he didn't think the axle looks like it needs to be replaced, so a couple of weeks. If you haven't heard from him, he said just stop by. So that's that. That's, man, that was, it's nice when things work out nice. Thanks for following along. I hope you're excited to hear about what happens with the trailer. I know I am. Remember, new videos come out every Sunday, so make sure and like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.